So Caitlin, actually go ahead and send it then, because that'll take me longer to find it.
I'm sending it right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Of course, I can't start the meeting till I get it. There it is.
So is it, are you comfortable with us running this live stream onto Facebook? Is everybody okay with that? Yeah.
Is everybody here? I only see 4 board members. Actually, sorry, 4 board members now that I just saw Aaron click in. Do we have Phil and Gary and Dr. Annam? So I'm assuming by no answers for that they're not on here yet. Okay. All right, I will take care of Todd, who you've got. I think I
I'm
have-
busy working on the Facebook live feed.
All right, well, let me see who I'll have here in my phone.
Phil
Alright.
just joined, so it's just Gary and Dr. Annam.
All right, so I'm not gonna, okay, so Carrie. There you go.
Phil, did you see Aaron is
Nice
representing?
cup, Aaron.
Yeah.
What? Oh. Yes. Thought you said top. I was like, half?
Nice cup. Nice cup.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Antonio. Rivaling you for the hair, buddy.
Well, I'll definitely say you're winning right now. I have hope and dreams also one day.
All right, we are live on Facebook as well. So we do have recording started, streaming on Facebook. So Chris, whenever you're ready to get going, you are welcome to.
Okay, thank you. Why am I not able to locate Mr. Random?
I can send something to Bill.
All right, I found him.
I will go in and resend him the Zoom invite just so it's at the fresh part of his inbox.
He's very busy right now, obviously, with his profession, so hopefully he's able to join us. All right. So let me pull up my agenda here. All right, since we are at 5:33, we're 3 minutes in, so I am going to call our meeting to order. Caitlin, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Kristen Runge.
Here.
Nyla Fry. Here. Bill Random. Chris Zellner.
Here.
Bill Willems.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Gary Hertzberg. All right.
Okay. Caitlin, I'm assuming we were confirmation of open meeting compliance, everything is good?
Yep, I was just going to say official notice of the meeting was posted at all 3 village posting locations on Monday the 19th, and it was made available online on Monday the 19th as well.
Okay, thank you. I see we have, is there anybody for public comments at this time, Todd?
I show no attendees.
Do they have the ability if they're watching on Facebook or anything like that, or no?
No, we don't have that interactivity.
Okay, they never want to cut anybody off if they want to talk, so I shouldn't say it that way, but you know what I mean. All right, new business. Work session with diversity consultants Betsy Delzer and Antonio. Wait.
And Chris, I will try to keep, I'll send a couple other notes to Bill and Gary so you can focus in on the meeting.
Okay, I sent them, I'm not, Bill said soonish, he texted me, so I'm assuming that means he's just wrapping up at the office there at the clinic.
Okay.
So, Gary, I don't know about. Okay, Betsy, go ahead, or Antonio, whoever's leading.
Yes, awesome. Well, it's great to see everyone again. We just really enjoyed ourselves the last time. We joined you in this squarecle. We like to call this a squarecle. If we were in person, which would be for sure our preference, we would be seated in a circle with a circle centerpiece and a talking piece, honoring traditions that just far outdate all of us on this screen. And we would be able to kind of just engage in this in a slightly different way. So we have made some COVID accommodations, and we're sitting in a squarecle. And as a result, we will be calling names instead of handing a talking piece. And right now my centerpiece actually is Antonio. So he's the center of my screen. So there you go. But we're looking forward to this. This is the kind of final phase of this particular time together. And so we've had the great opportunity to meet with each of you individually and then come together as a group a couple of weeks ago. And now tonight, challenge ourselves even further. And the purpose of our time together is really to grow as a team, but also to bolster and empower you as leaders in our village community and also in this work. With that, we do have a couple of items, just the logistical pieces. I'm just going to ask that somebody gives me a wave if I'm ever talking and I start really delaying. I'm having a few internet connection issues, so I can always cut my video, and that should help you to be able to hear me a little bit better without the distraction of the delay. And then it looks like we've got Gary and Bill still yet to arrive. So we'll just welcome them when they come in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that Antonio can help us with the opening quote and the guidelines. So just give me one moment. Thank you.
So while Bess is getting set on the quote, I do want to take a moment to once again just thank you all for the opportunity that we've had to get to know each and every last one of you. And for me, thinking about this week, thinking about it on Monday, thinking about it today, I was like, okay, then, we were given the opportunity to come in and hopefully enhance the skills that you all already possess and just be a set of resources to help you grow in the direction that you all collectively are aiming for. But I also coming into tonight just like, how as a coach or as an athlete, when you're walking into that final game of the season and you just have all these emotions kind of going around, or for me, at least when I walk in as a coach or as an athlete of the final game of the season, I try not to let my mind go all over the place and kind of keep my emotions together. And I just want to continue the season however the season was, just being the best you can be any given time, any given day, but also knowing in the back of my mind that, hey, we won't see each other again into next season. So I'm putting it out there early because I'm thinking about already when the next time that myself and Bessie will get a chance to see you all. So just let you know, I'm looking forward to whatever our next season may be. And just knowing that it's been a great time. I'm getting to know each and every last one of you. And just thank you for the moment and opportunity. So I forget where this quote comes from. I know me and Bessie always communicate daily, weekly, just about. And I think this may be a quote that she kind of shared. And I thought it was very, very appealing. And just speaking to myself and speaking to, I think, the work that Betsy and I get a chance to do, but I also thought it was very powerful for the work that we all have set out to be a part of during this season of our time together. So, I usually try not to read word for word from the screen, but I definitely will do so on this one. And I guess we'll also use this as our time to just take in the words that I say, that I read, or read it to yourself, but read every word with every breath is what I'm going to invite you to do. Change is necessary. It is important. And it is also what makes life exciting. When we fear change, it keeps us in the energy of feeling stuck, powerless, and resentful. But when we embrace change, we open ourselves to understanding that anything is possible. Life is not supposed to stay the same. We are not supposed to stay the same. Our life, our communities, and our world are always in bloom. When we understand this, we see that change is growth, and growth is essential for each of us to reach our individual and collective set of potential, I'm gonna say destination, because to me, that keeps us focused on where we're trying to go and where we want to be. So, with that being said, just a quick reminder of our circle guidelines. The purpose of this is just for equity of voice, to speak and listen from the heart, trust you will know what to say, and trust that you will also say just enough. And if we have anyone that's not on our screen, but that's taking advantage of the opportunity to share in this moment with us, I also invite the outside observers to the same circle guidelines as well. And thank you. Back over to Betsy.
I know, I'm getting unmuted. 1 second. Like, lest we have to actually say that to each other just here. Okay, so this is a long question, so I'm going to keep the screen up for just a moment, and then I'll come back to the group. The way we're doing this evening, last time we kind of started with a big group question, and everybody got to go around. This time we have broken it into slightly smaller groups of answerers and people. And at the end, we're going to open it up to everyone with sort of more of a free flow. So round one, we have this question. Antonio will help us with round two. And then round three, we'll both be guiding you through more of just insights that might have come up, ideas that might even be sparked tonight or since our last conversation. And just making note tonight, you know, if there's something that you want to respond to or say, we'll have a little bit more spaciousness, and everybody will have that opportunity in round three. So I have been screen sharing and have not been watching. So has Gary arrived?
Here.
Yay, Gary, good to hear you. I haven't seen you yet, but I look forward to seeing you in a moment. So here is the first question, and Gary, you are my brave first answerer, okay? So my first respondee. So here we go. I'll go ahead and read it, and then you can respond, all right? So the responsibility is on white racialized people in our community to do internal work that causes us to examine, reflect, and pause so that we can change collectively. How have you committed to this in your heart, your home, and in your leadership?
You know, I suppose I'm trying to think. That's an interesting question. You know, I'd like to think, hopefully, some of the things that I've done by example, you know, if it's the Wanakee Neighborhood Connection. And yesterday I was working with the Wanakee Neighborhood Connection, delivering furniture to a number of different families in the community. And so I guess for me, most of the things I do are set by example of doing things. I'm not great at writing emails and maybe talking, but I like to do things, and hopefully that's how I set examples of, you know, by what I do in the community. I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, but.
That's great, Gary. You know, I think one thing that Antonio and I really talked about after we met with each of you individually, there's so many servant leaders, if that's kind of a, you know, a way of leading. And there are a lot of you who very naturally serve as part of how you embody leadership. And that's what I hear from that. So thank you. My friend Kristen, you are next. Would you like me to reread the question? Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the organization I work for, Extension, has staked a claim in equity. So a lot of the work that I'm doing personally was prompted and started by our organizational view. In our home, we talk a lot about the different forms of privilege that we have. We've tried to raise our kids with an awareness of that, from an income, from a race perspective, from a perspective of having two educated parents, and how that has shaped their experience and made it different. In that process, I think it also has raised my awareness and my husband's awareness of how our own upbringings gave us different forms of privilege. In a larger context, in my family, we've been talking a lot about what does it mean that we came here as a family in 1852 and had a land claim in southwestern Wisconsin, which meant that our foothold in Wisconsin happened because other folks were pushed out by the U.S. government. And we say in our family we've never had more than 2 nickels to rub together until pretty recently. But at least we had 2 nickels to rub together. So we talk a lot about how that historical foothold, as a result of colonization, has affected us, for the last benefited us for the last 5 generations. What does it mean in terms of leadership? I'm lucky enough to work for the university, and they've staked we put our stick in this hill and we're defending it. And so through the job that I do, we're having a lot of conversations with the communities I work with about what does equity look like? What does that mean? What does it mean in terms of the projects that we're working on at hand? So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. I know we're not supposed to really reply to everything, so I'll try to slow down, Antonio. But just as you were talking about your family coming over in 1852, it reminded me a little bit of the Native Land app. I don't know if you have been able to find that. But yeah, so when you mentioned Southwest Wisconsin, I just pulled that up and I was thinking, Peoria, Saucon, Meskwaki, Raincoat, Chunk, Winnebago, or Miami being the original landowners, right?
Yeah.
To whom the land belongs.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. You have.
Go ahead. Yeah, I said yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Phil, would you like me to read the question, or you're ready for it?
Yeah. Since our last meeting, I've done very little. I've been a little tight circle. I work in the park and do very little. I made a conscious effort to look anybody that I haven't met before in the eye and introduce myself to them, and that's about it. I've been in a little tight circle. I haven't had much to do. I've left my home only to go work in a village park and put up Christmas lights. So since our last meeting, I haven't been able to do very much to change my life other than invite everybody that I see to help me with what I'm doing.
All
So,
right.
very honestly, haven't left town, haven't left the neighborhood.
All right. So, Antonio, would you like me to pull up the second question? Okay.
Please. All right, thank you. And kind of get the name order there so you can prepare yourself and get your talking points ready if you have any. But last time we met in our circle, you each expressed a desire to transform our community. What personal changes have you made to make that possible? And what learning about other cultures, perspectives, and views have increased your understanding of the necessary changes to be made? And we will start with Erin, please.
I think especially since last time when we all talked, I think the biggest thing for me was like learning and realizing that there's a lot that I need to learn about, and even just like historically. And then that was brought up in that podcast that you guys had shared with us, was like, I have not lived through a lot of these things. And obviously that, give like, I don't have a lens of like, I wasn't there, and not saying that anyone was at some of these things, but like, what are the facts I don't know, and like what are things that I know, and things that I definitely was not taught in school. And there was a line in that podcast that I guess brought me, made me think of this, was like, it's like when we talk about a lot of these movements and issues, it's for white people, like from here and into the future, and then for people of color, it's the last 400 years to now. Or we just talked about native land, it's thousands of years ago to now. And so I think for me, it's like a lot of like what happened in the past that now creates like the world that I'm currently growing up in. So trying to get that perspective. Like we had talked about this, like changing media, and like, what am I listening to in podcasts, or like even, fiction books, and what kind of authors, or like spending money at minority owned businesses, or, seeking out different restaurants to go to and support, those kind of things. I think making it more of like this day-to-day habit, and being like, I'm going to, learn and sit down and like actually try to soak this stuff in, to be a better leader, and like to be able to have that knowledge of going forward.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing, Aaron. Really appreciate it. And Bill is not with us still, so I think we're going over to Chris now.
Yeah, I was just checking my text for Bill, and he just said that he's with a patient. So he's on call in with a patient right now. So we probably won't have him for a little while. So I'll start with, kind of a theme from Kristen, and say that my great grandfather came from Germany back right around 1900, and very, very deep German heritage within my family. And my mother is actually French Canadian and has part Indian with that. So little bit of background here. The first piece of land I owned was on John Street, followed by Ganser Drive, and now I'm on Eldora Lane. So those are the lands that I've owned. Sorry, Kristen, I thought that was great what you shared, and I had to share that then. So with regards to the question, the biggest thing I think that I've undertaken is creating awareness. I think it's part of our roles to create awareness throughout our community about all. And learning about them is part of it, but creating the awareness for everyone else and sharing is deeply important. Some of the things that I've already just been involved with, one of my coworkers is a minority, and she's also Jewish. So within Phil's Christmas lights, we're going to be adding, I'm working on the donors for this right now, a menorah and a Kwanzaa to go into and be part of that. So we can make it a little more diverse than what we have now. Not that we can't add others, but that's a start within that. We're also having our 150-year celebration next year, where we're reaching out to the Ho-Chunk Nation, as well as one of our community members, and bringing that as part of that celebration, since they were actually here first before us. And I think that's important to celebrate with that 150 years of us being here. And then I can't think of the name of the show, but I just watched it. The gentleman, I can't think of the gentleman's name. So on top of that, but he wrote a book called Shade. So maybe people have heard of that. But it talks about a lot of the Obama timeframe when he was in office, and what that meant to the Black community, and how important it was for President Obama to be elected, and the change that took place, the pride that could come with that. And the understanding and knowledge that it's possible for everyone to become president of the United States. So that's something else that just, it resonated with me in seeing how that impacted children, both white and Black children, as they went through and talked about that. So Perspective is one thing, creating awareness is another, and I think that's important that we share our experiences and have experiences shared with us, most importantly.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, Nyla, we have you.
Okay, what I've done is a lot of self-perspective, and I always thought that my husband and I came from very tough times. It was big families, no money, sometimes nothing to eat. And through this process, I have realized that even it was very tough, we had everything. We had a sound family that was strong. We had property where we could have gardens. My husband was fortunate enough to, after he came home from the service, to have a job at Oscar Mayer so that we could move to Wanakee. And being in Wanakee changed our lives. We had a leg up. We got involved in the community. Our children have had great educations. We have always felt like we were so fortunate to move from where we were to where we are now. When I really look at that, I question, where would we be if my skin was a different color? Would we be here? To tell the truth, I don't think so. And so what I've been trying to do is think all these things through and absorb as much information as I can. And when I talk to people who are walking up the street and I can't get close to them now, I'm yelling at them from across the yard, and some of them probably think it's the strangest thing they ever saw. But I'm striking up conversations with people and asking, and I've always been kind of like that, but sometimes the people look at me like I'm this crazy lady yelling from across the yard, and I just ask them how old their baby is and how long they've been in Wanakee and how they like Wanakee. And I'm getting a lot of smiles. And because of COVID, I haven't been out as much as I would like to be, or I have been in the past. But I'm trying to understand that we, myself and the community, we will grow stronger if we and become more united when we open our doors and ourselves. When right now, when we're out to the grocery store, we have a mask on. So instead of just giving someone a smile, I'm socially distanced, but I'll say, hi, how are you today? And I think that's what we all need to do, but we need to do it in a bigger way. We need to not only say hello, how are you, but we have to open our doors. And we can put out a welcome mat and say you're welcome, but we also have to open the door. And so that's kind of what I'm working on. And I hope that I can find a way to open that door further and make it possible for those who are having difficult times for whatever reason to move to Wanakee, that they will find a way to do it. Because I was provided this opportunity, and without opportunity that I had, a lot of people just aren't going to make it.
Thank you very much for sharing, Nyla. All responses very powerful in my very own opinion, and I thank you all. Hey, Bill, I know you just joined us here. I hope everything's going well with you. I'm not sure if you are in a position or need some time to kind of do our check-in around our round 2. If you need some time to kind of get yourself settled in, we can just kind of move forward to our last round, and you can get a chance to knock that one out the park.
Yeah, keep moving, because I don't know when I'll get another call, so I'm just waiting it out. So
okay, go ahead, Betsy.
All right. So yeah, welcome, Bill. I just, as you were joining, just noticing, like, I'm glad, Antonio, that you gave him that welcome, because we need to land, right? We need to land on our feet. Sometimes we're just flying from thing to thing. The other thing is, Nyla, I just really want to say, like, I have appreciated through our coaching session and various circles, you just really tenderly open, especially to some of your life story. And one of the things that we really hoped for this group is that, so many times you're together in kind of a more formal setting and you're dealing with agenda issues, and these are really just issues of the heart and the stitches of our stories. And Phil, when you made the comment, like, I haven't really done much or gone out much since our last meeting, it's amazing. I think one of the things that I've really taken away from this time in COVID is the interior landscape. The tending is sometimes even more complex than the world outside of us, and this is really where Antonio and I focus a lot of our work in schools and in various other capacities, but really thinking through our thought patterns, the way our hearts are wired, and then and looking at that with both inquiry and curiosity and willingness, right? Like willingness to kind of disrupt what's not going to be for the benefit, right? And for the benefit of all versus the potential that we can do harm. So for this last round, it's really kind of unique. You might, first of all, what might be unique, and every time I say this, I sort of jinx myself, but I'm like, we may end early, so let's not get too excited. But no, you just never know if you need all the time. But for this last round, one of the ideas that we had was to open it up for you to respond to one another, or share a question. You might just have a question, and to just ask that of each other. You can ask that of me or Antonio. You could ask it of somebody else on the team. We really want also for this opportunity to be something that you're learning about and seeing the humanity in each other as well. And one of the things we love about this group is that we literally have this just great spectrum of, Erin, you mentioned kind of like not having the life experience, and then we've got Phil at the other end of the spectrum, right? And just this great spectrum of life experiences and ages. So all phases of life represented here. So what questions or curiosities do you have of each other, or anything you want to offer into the circle? And I do have a circle order, so I'm going to go ahead and not just wait for a wave, because that can be sort of intimidating. So the order, I'm just going to read your names just so you remember. And then if you don't have anything, you can either shake your head or say pass, and I'm sure Antonio and I can fill in too if you don't have something right on the tip of your mind. So the order tonight for just this free flow round is Bill, Erin, Gary, Chris, Phil, Nyla, and Kristen. So with that, Bill, do you feel like you've had a chance to arrive, and you can either respond to round two or to this kind of more free flow of just what are you thinking, what's coming up for you?
So I'll go. And I guess it's more like, this may be more of an Antonio question than it is the rest of the group. Because what I notice is it seems like if somebody comes off, what do you want to say, culturally insensitive or insensitive or whatever, and then if they get corrected, how is the best way to walk yourself out of a correction, or where you've done, or something is just like, hey, I didn't quite catch that, and now I'm catching it. So how do I walk through that? And I kind of know it for the Filipinos. They just make fun and they just keep going, right? I mean, and then you just know you're going to get paid back somewhere along the line. But as I go through like other groups, it's a little more confusing to me. Like Because there are groups of people that take, can take offense and I'm not trying to be offensive. I just don't always catch it. So I guess I'll leave that throw that at Antonio. How's that reversing it on you?
So I have to make sure my mind is wrapping around the reversal. Good job, Bill. That sounds like something I would do. So are you asking if is it myself that made a comment, so to speak, or if I'm the recipient of hearing it?
Accidental recipient, that's the more common, I think, is that somebody, you're just all of a sudden you're walking and you're talking and your brain isn't so good. And you make that, like you do something that might be insensitive, but also might just be that, you're not sure where you stand with the person as like, when you're with friends, people just put things up, right? I mean, and then when you're with somebody or you go with a group and you go, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that to be offensive to anybody, but it could have been. I mean, and I'm trying to walk back where
and honestly, I would say the last phrase that you just said is where if a comment is made and someone overhears that comment and they take offense to it, usually someone may feel very confident and just saying, hey, I kind of overheard your conversation and the statement you made about blank, I found offensive. And so to me, I've been in many positions to where I've heard comments that were slightly offensive. And if I'm being honest, which I always am and truthful, majority of my life, I've just kept moving and didn't respond, or I didn't let the individual know that the comment they made hurt me. And it wasn't until recently where I've been doing this work and having these opportunities to where truly myself personally, I am learning how to correct people or correct the individual that make a comment. And so what I've noticed lately is usually not me that will correct someone. It's usually someone around me that don't, I'm gonna say physically look like me, that will probably speak up first. So as I'm telling you this now, like my mind is just racing because for so many years, majority of my life, I've just taken so much, so many things. The only time I have spoke up and I will speak up, I'm working on speaking up for myself, but I've been in many places coaching kids and I've heard comment after comment about the group of kids that I was with. So I definitely have approached individuals and say, hey, I just want to let you know that comment you said about this group of kids, it's not right. And it's wrong for you to think that, wrong for you to say that. Number one, these are kids you're talking about. Number two, that's just really disrespectful. So I always step up for the kids I work with or I coach. But for me personally, I'm learning how to do that today myself at 43 years of age. And it sounds pretty tough, but that's kind of how I am now.
Can I bother you with a follow-up then? Like, so sometimes you'll hear something and I go, hey, I could step through this and say something, but should I step through? I mean, does that make the person feel worse or better if I walking through and
I say, if you overhear someone or you know someone is saying anything and you know that it's slightly or is offensive to someone else, stepping up and letting that individual know, like, hey, or helping them or help correcting that comment, I think is where we want to go. That's the direction we want to move in as a community and as society.
Right. I'm talking like right in front of the person. Say it is one of those kids. I have no trouble doing it in front of a kid, right? Stepping in and saying, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't say that in front of that kid. I have more trouble doing it in front of you. I mean, where you go, hey, Antonio is a good guy. Tough. I mean, he can step in for himself. Should I still step in on that, or should I get out of the
I'm shaking my head, yes, because once again, this is encouraging me also. Like I say, I step in, I step up personally for anyone around. I just have not really done it for myself per se. So my answer to you will be yes. If you in the moment, simply because you never know who else may be in this area as well. And okay, I say be direct. Me being a Black man, if I hear something being said and someone that doesn't look like me, identifies me physically, steps in and say, hey, you shouldn't say that about Antonio, or you shouldn't say it about anyone, and Antonio's sitting right here and that's rude to him, that's going to make me look at you like, okay, then this individual gets it, half my back, and now somehow, some way, I now have some sort of trust within you, and now I'm going to walk away feeling better personally because someone heard something and acknowledged it and stepped up to the plate for me.
So speaking of stepping up to the plate, one of the things that we learn along the way, and one of the reasons Antonio and I love co-presenting and coaching together is because there's a real time for one of us to sit down and the other to rise up, right? One of us to sit down and the other one to stand up. And there are really subtle nuances to that need some understanding and peeling back. And then there's some pretty overt times. And so for me, aware of my whiteness and my sometimes white centering, and in terms of where I've come from, there are times when I'm just very sensitive to like the emotional labor that we can ask of our Black, brown, people of color, people of culture, Indigenous folks that are around doing the work with us and doing life with us. And so, so one of the things, you know, about the question, first of all, I want to say that it's a great question. And it's a question that you will probably have as your awareness. So we kind of call this the arc of awakening. As that awareness rises, you start to see everywhere. Like I'll never forget when my kids came to the mall pre-COVID and life was a little bit normal. And I had really been talking to them a lot about representation in media and how often we look around and see white faces everywhere. And my son paused in the middle of a pretty popular store and he looked around and he said, Mom, I don't see any people of color as models on these walls. You know, he was just like making this remark. And so your awareness, as your awareness increases, so does these questions and these pauses. And that's right where the work happens. And I would say one thing that is important for all of us, but especially for those of us who are really doing the white awakening work, is having safe spaces to ask the questions, right? So like having a friend, and I'm now all of your friends, so having a friend to call and be like, hey, I read this, or like even asking questions that, you know, those questions that we're like afraid to ask, or the questions that you're not quite sure if anyone else has asked. The reality is a lot of people have asked those questions, right? And a lot of people ask this very question, and you just need that sort of safe place to learn and grow, a sort of allyship together. And you have that among each other, right? Some of you have different life experiences where, like I'm thinking, for example, let's say Erin starts a new pursuit as she's kind of moving into her mid and late 20s, right? And she can call up Kristen and say, hey, remember that story from Atlanta and the experience that you had? Can we just talk about this for a moment? And you start to mentor each other, regardless of where you are in life. But having a person to ask those questions, especially white on white, is important to have some sort of space to ask those questions because it can be exhausting. And we want to be aware of just the exhaustion factor. Anything that I'm missing on that part, Antonio, about just sort of emotional labor or?
No, I was like mentioned it and I thought of it, but I didn't speak to it. Like you say, just that safe space and collectively to be on the screen. That's what we need. And I did also want to say, yes, you have a friend in Betsy, but I was like, hold on, you have a friend in me also. So always feel free to reach out as well, because like I said before, like this is something that I'm hoping to try to find some way of a continuation just to be involved and supportive. This is kind of how I offer up my life to the things that I do. So definitely, thank you, Bill. That was great, man. I like that conversation, and there was some trust there. I felt also some respect and just vulnerability. So thank you for that question, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I was in a course called Witnessing Whiteness, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, is that the name of the course? So I might have to double check my references here, especially since we're live. But anyway, I was in this course, and one of the visualizations was basically like being in a situation like this, where you know exactly what to say, you know, and you know, you like feel really empowered, and you know, you have all the words. And I think one of the things I just wanted to say is like, what's the worst that could happen is that we make a mistake. We make a misstep. And in that misstep, we do harm or we hurt, right? And I have lived through that several times, because the other end of that is not taking the risk. And not taking the risk is more harmful, in my opinion, because you're not growing and moving. Because I have made some pretty public. I was at a social justice training once where I ended up in a council circle for 2 hours unpacking something I had said and people's misunderstanding around it. And truly in that council circle, I was like, there is like literally, I'd like to be anywhere else on this planet besides where I am right now. I cannot believe that this was my misstep. And yet now, looking back on that experience, and even in it, I knew there was information in the mistake. I knew that as much as I like really had this like regret of how it went down, there, I knew, number one, I wouldn't do it again. And number two, I knew that there was information there, and it has continued to teach me in the months that have passed since, if that makes sense. So it's more harmful to sit by and be aware or afraid, right? And to give into that fear and not risk, than it is to push and try and ask and say something so that you can move towards growth and change. So with that, no pressure. Sheesh, I just like laid on the pressure thick, because next up is Erin. And that's just if you have any questions or thoughts, and if not, you can pass. We got another few people, and I promised y'all I would let y'all out early, and this is not looking like the case. Not true, Antonio says. All right, go ahead, Erin. Any free flow thoughts?
I had kind of written down, Nyla, what you had said about like we can put the welcome mat out and say, you know, everyone is welcome, you know, come on in, but like we also should open the door. And kind of thinking of the quote that we started with, and like the collective potential, and it's, I think back to last meeting too, like a lot of us are like, you know, there are issues, but like we have a good community, and like things, you know, I love living here, and obviously we all care a lot. We all were elected to be at this table. But I think like for us opening the door, it's like how are we making it heavier, or like how have we like add an extra lock, I guess, or like what don't we know about how hard it is to open the door. So I guess that's just my thoughts right now, but yeah.
That what, Antonio, what did you just say? What don't we know about how hard we've made it? That was a poetic. Do you have that written down, Erin?
Oh, no.
Oh, it's okay. It's recorded. I can look back. It's like, what don't we know?
I think Kristen has it. See?
Yeah, that was beautiful. What don't we know? Right? We think of the things we do know. And, when we were asking kind of what learning have you done, the purpose wasn't necessarily to be performative or sort of say like, oh, here's my resume of my racial awakening. And, oh, yeah, Kristen put it, okay, what don't we know about how hard it is to open the door? What don't we know about how hard it is to open the door? So yeah, the purpose of asking about our learning was really because one of the things we want whoever is listening, but especially each other, is to just really state the importance of this continued growth. In a course that Antonio and I co-teach, there's I mentioned this arc of awakening, and we call it an arc, but it's much more of just a mess, right? It's a mess. It's a total mess because of these mistakes and these risks and the things that happen, and the harm that we have to repair. But a lot of times there's a phase where as your perspective shifts and you start to see the world differently, it's like every day is something new. Every day is something like your awareness is so heightened that you're no longer seeing the world in which you once lived. And for some people, I've wondered a lot for Wanakee, and for those of you who've lived here for a very long time, and our community itself, we do need to do that on a collective level. Is really see, that question or that statement that Erin just made. What we don't know about how hard it is to open that door. So I'm just going on here. Antonio, anything before we move on? No? Okay. All right, so carrying on with free flow. We've got Gary next. Any comments, questions, wonderings, thoughts for the group?
Even follow up to Erin a little bit about, not knowing how hard it is, that the term white privilege gets thrown around everywhere today, it seems like. And I try to define it, and it's sometimes hard for me to understand, how hard it is for a person of color, for example, because at least in my circle, the people I know that I have worked with in the past, probably my work career at AT&T probably had the most diversity in it, and it wasn't a lot. So I understand white privilege, but I don't think I understand it at the level that other people do, because their experience with diversity is much greater than mine. And I don't know how to fix that, so I understand it better. I don't know. That's a tough one for me, because I always look at it and say, well, you know what? I think we all say, well, gosh, we didn't come from anything. The only thing we had a strong family life. We didn't have money. We didn't have a lot of things, but we worked hard, and that's what I would tell my kids when they were saying, oh, this isn't fair. I said, you know what? Life isn't fair. Suck it up, get over it. And, you got to move on. So it's easy to say that, but I don't understand, probably from a diversity standpoint, what it's like for, people of color that have moved into Wanakee, because it might be a lot tougher. But it's difficult for me to gauge that or understand it. And I would like to be able to do that because it would be easier for me to I think I'd be more sensitive if I understood that piece of it. So.
Yeah. Does anybody have an immediate response to that? I do, but I want to give people an opportunity. Anybody? Was that a finger to raise, Bill, or no? You're saying go ahead. Go ahead. He's like, go ahead. Okay. So, yeah, lots of thoughts here. When I think about, I'm gonna totally pull us out of this context to talk about some other kinds of learning, so that and then we'll draw back. So sort of analogous here. For a very long time, we talked about trying as educators to learn a blended learning format, right? And we did some trainings on online teaching, and I participated in some of those. I ran an online course, and I didn't really think about it much because I didn't teach an online course. I taught in person, and then it was like another professional development, something I just checked off the list and said I attended. Then we encountered a global pandemic that we're still in the midst of, right? And all of a sudden, we went into full immersion, the fully immersive process of learning. And full immersion meant I couldn't even leave my walls of my home. And all I had was this to reach you and to reach my students. And so my learning went from a professional development opportunity to full immersion, and this became my language. This became the way I could connect to the world. This became everything, right? I think that our work in becoming activists, and by activists, I mean people who take a stand for what is right, can be like that sometimes, right? We need to actually get to the place and point where we are fully immersing ourselves. And by that, I do mean some of the things, I mean, Erin, I think, is our thought leader here in the group tonight for immersion, right? Like, she's looking at history. She mentioned her media disruption. She mentioned a few other ways that she's really stretching her mind and thought processes. And that's what we need to do, right? And then combined with safe places where we can engage and have ongoing conversations so we can learn from each other. But it is not, first of all, abnormal, Gary. I have a feeling as you were talking, like, I'm not sure I totally understand the depth and the width of that. That is very, very common, especially for people who grew up in rural places or in some kind of poverty, like who weren't, like didn't have a super comfortable life. I've heard from a lot of white folks, like, I can't identify with that because my life has been so hard, right? And then as they learn more about oppression and they learn more about marginalization and history, but then to present, it's happening down the street, it's happening in our high school, our middle school. I mean, as we think about those things happening right around us, then our awareness kicks in, right? So pause, Antonio. Can you pick up?
And I think for me, as you're talking, Gary, my mind was just going to understanding the term white privilege as what it is, as a description of certain advantages that other people have over those that don't have the same opportunity based on the things that society has put in place. And right away, a quick example that came to my mind right away was redlining, and those things, the war on drugs, and all those things in my mind, those are systemic things that was put in place that, in my own opinion, help defines white privilege. But one thing I know from being around white privilege for a number of years now, just the term and the unearthing of it, is walking individuals back from the ledge of feeling responsible or guilty. And that's why I personally try to pull individuals back to a point of working through that emotion, almost like I say, just guilt or responsibility. It's just wanting to understand the awareness that I think will be the theme of our time together from start to finish. And once we get to a place of understanding and aware, now we get to make the choice as to how we move forward. And when we make the choice as to how we move forward, I think that's the determining factor in who we are as people, how we want to be seen in the world, how we want the world to see us. So once we learn these things, and once we know these things, and once we are able to put certain pieces of the puzzle together, how we now move in our life, I think is the biggest indicator of what kind of human you choose to be. And so I think there was a word or a phrase you used in, it's leaving me right now, like can't, not, what word you use? Like not, you were saying like you felt like you didn't understand it enough. But I took it as you understand it enough because you're able to speak to it. You're able to elaborate on what your thinking is around white privilege. So in my mind, you are exactly where you need to be with that term. I don't think you have to try to get to another level where someone else may be. So moving at your space and your speed of what you're learning is just enough for who you are right now today.
All right, thanks.
I think too, yeah, I love that, Antonio. The reminder that it gave me was the other thing that you did, Gary, is that you modeled bringing this up in like a spirit of humility. And one of the things that we really, one of the emotions and experiences that comes up a lot in our work is defensiveness. And man, defensiveness, I know we're like live and recorded and this is a very official meeting, but I have a lot of words for defensiveness. It's a beast. I'm going to say beast, because it can totally create so much armor that makes, I mean, if you think about running a race that is a very long race, running a very long distance with lots, you know, and if you're in it and then you just armor up, how much more difficult you're making it, you know. So I appreciate just naming the wondering without that spirit of defensiveness, and even it just that goes to everyone in this room. See, you're all in my room. Everyone in this square goal, just because you can notice when defensiveness comes up, right? You're going to notice it with conversations with your neighbors and with your friends. Defensiveness is going to come up a lot in the coming week with the political climate that we're in. There's defensiveness that comes up, and just like Antonio said, what do you do with that? How do you sit with that? Is that who you want to be? Is that how you want to show up? There's nothing that can block progress more than someone just sitting with their defenses raised. That's the wall, right? Okay, I never should have said anything about getting out early. Okay, Chris, do you have
Can I
any?
jump in real quick?
Oh yeah, Todd.
Just another aspect of the wall that is put up. I actually want to sort of pat the board on the back because I have worked in my career for elected officials who would have refused to participate in this. I don't know, Caitlin, if you've been in several cities before too. I don't know if you've seen it, but I can name names. I can see their faces, and it's like more than this many in my career that would not have even participated. And I think that says a lot for you as a board. And I think that's reflective of our community, quite honestly. Granted, there's gonna be those that don't play well with others, but that's meaningful to me. And I think it's important for you to know that I've seen different types of people in your shoes. Even if you don't feel, Gary, for example, even if you don't feel like you've gone a great distance in this stuff, because you're here is really meaningful based on my experience with others. Caitlin, what have you seen?
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I echo Todd's sentiments. I've worked for a number of communities, and I just want to commend you all. You didn't just show up, you meaningfully participated. And I know as one of the employees who works for your organization, I'm really proud of all of you for how open and honest and vulnerable you have been. I think I reached out to Todd after our first meeting like this, and I was just like, that was really powerful to see you all be vulnerable, because I know it's not easy to be that way and to take that step. You were elected to serve the community, and I think the vulnerability you've showed should make all of the residents very proud of who they've elected. Like Todd, I think of, as soon as you said that, I have people in my mind of former communities who would have showed up but not participated the way you guys have. Would have just sat in the room and said, I'm here, I'm in the room. But you guys didn't just come and sit in this squircle. You meaningfully participated, and I commend all of you for that. It made me proud. So thank you.
All right, we'll disappear again. You don't see us.
All right. So speaking of radical vulnerability, Chris Zellner, you're up.
Motion to adjourn. No, I'm kidding.
He's like, oh wait, where am I?
So I've been waiting a long time here with things. Bill, first question for you, Bill Random. Are those special doctor's glasses that any of us can get, or is it a fashion statement?
These are, because they go with the mask, and you should have goggles and mask when you're with sick people. Yeah.
Okay. It's cool. You look cool with them. I just wanted to say that. So
I thought I'd probably look a little smarter, you know.
I wasn't going to say that, of course. So Antonio made a comment a little bit ago, and he said, how do you want to be seen in the world? And I may be killed by midnight tonight based on what I'm going to say because of the current environment in our country. And this is not about policy. And what I'm talking about, purely just the human nature of being an elected official and the importance of how we treat one another all the time. And I think it's difficult with what we're trying to accomplish right now when we have certain leaders, we'll just say, of our country, that demean people constantly. And what I mean by that is, if we had a social media page and I was on there, and Nyla, you'd become Nightmare Nyla. Bill, you'd be Wild Bill. Phil, you'd be Phil the Philanderer. We'd have Goofy Gary, Careless Kristen, what do I have for Aaron? Oh, Aaron, is your name Moran or Moron? I could have all of those that I could be stating out there. And, that sends a message to the general public, which we have to combat. It's not right for people to do that. We would never teach our children that or encourage anyone, it doesn't matter what their race is. That's something that we always have to. And so I came up with we have enablers that are allowing that to happen. And we as elected officials can stop that. All right. Whether we have policy differences or disagreements, that's fine. We're going to have those. We can work through those. But to treat each other with disrespect, and this just puts it even more on my plate about our minority community. They've been disrespected for a long time. And right now our president has actually exposed it across all lines of life that he's disrespecting. So I'll just say words matter when we talk, and the action, they multiply actions for people, both positive and negative, that we say. And we can call people into the wrong things with just a comment that's a flippant comment can cause that to happen. So I'm not trying to influence anybody's votes, to be very clear tonight. I'm just pointing out something that as a country, I think we need to correct, and as a people. So that's it. Other than Bill's glasses, I think that was pretty calm.
Yes, and I do hope that you are safe. I do hope you're safe for those comments. No, I appreciate what you said, and I think words do matter. And there's ways of thinking about mindful leadership and really embodying the filters that are, yes, our words, also our actions, but even more personally, and this is a great segue to my friend Phil, filtering our thoughts, right? So it's thoughts, words, and actions. When we have those in alignment with that who we want to be in the world, that's when we are being really mindful. Because what we say, what we think, and what we say, and how we act can draw us closer to that person that we want to be or pull us farther away. That kind of comes from Kelly McGonigal, a health psychologist out of Stanford. So, all right, Phil, speaking of.
Okay,
Phil, before you start, can I add one
I
thing?
want to defend myself first of all.
Phil, I wanted to state
Is
this.
a man who readily or frequently enters into casual relationships with women, a womanizer. I've been married for 56 years to the same lady. I'm womanizing? Come now.
So I wanted to state that.
I'm gonna put you over my knee, young man.
To all of you, I was just making those up off the cuff, just like our president does, I think, at times. So I apologize, Phil. I probably should have picked like Phil the Whitney, something along that.
Okay, enough of that. About once a week, I go out on my what I call howdy rounds, and we have 4 restaurants that Betty and I have invested in called Culver's, and they're in different locations in different areas. And when I go into like our Northport restaurant or our Easttown restaurant, frequently I have to make it a point of pulling aside a young individual that has been recently promoted to some mid-level management position. And they're usually like, in their mid-20s. And I tell them that, and then Northport and Easttown, frequently there'd be a young Black or a male or female. And I would say to them, I said, we're going to have problems working together because we're kind of different. And they said, oh, really? I said, yeah, we're 56 years apart. We're different. And, they kind of enjoy that the difference is not that I'm white. I don't apologize for being white. Antonio shouldn't apologize for being Black. Yeah, there are issues, but we've got to use humor, common sense, and I think we can knock down more barriers. And for me, that works when I get a kid they'll be able to stand and talk to me for a while and tell me a little bit about their family and a little bit about what their goals in life are, because frequently they're just parking themselves with us in the restaurant for a little while because there's only so many places to go up in our organization. So they've got to get a little stability in their life, learn something from us that they can take on to somewhere else. And we make a big point of trying to promote from within. And if we can, just make them think that we're just people versus we're white or Black or brown people, it sure works out a lot easier, and that we're not philanderers. No, but that aside, I don't apologize for the fact that I'm different from Antonio. I think it's something that makes us better people. When I went to Nigeria for a few years ago for 2 weeks, and I was in Lagos, the folks there were nice to me. They didn't pick on me because I was a minority. They did tell me I drive too safely, but they're just great people. And I think if you get down into people's lives and do what they do, you're going to overcome so doggone much stuff. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. I think since day one, we've really appreciated your willingness to listen. And I love that you go to restaurants and ask questions. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything we can come away from, there's going to be, a lot of times these experiences are sort of like walking the beach and looking for the seashell that we're going to take with us, right? The thing that we're going to bring home. And if we can remember to listen, that's a key aspect of mindful leadership and aware leadership. Yeah. So, all right, Miss Nyla, you are next. What free flow do you have for us this evening?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the humor, because what would life be without humor? What I've been thinking about is how difficult change is. For me, it's very difficult. I want to be organized. I want it to be consistent, and I don't want a mess. I just want it to be in a nice, tidy package. So when I think about how difficult change is for me, it brings me to think how difficult in many ways change is for community. Wanakee has had many changes over the years since I came in 1977, and we now have a beautiful new library, and Main Street has been reconstructed, and we have a roundabout. And all those changes came with controversy, as anything does. And we've had a lot of growth, and we've been headed in a certain direction. And right now we're kind of at a place where it may be time to reevaluate our direction and try to think more about the future and what the needs of the future are going to be. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a process that has probably lots of ups and downs. I think we've started the process through a lot of work. There's a lot ahead of us. And I just need to remember myself that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be messy, but in the end, we'll come up with a really good changes and positive things for the community. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Kristen.
Yeah, I'm the last, right? So I'm standing between us and leaving, right? Am I correct on that? So I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes. Just prepare yourselves, everyone. Because once I hit the floor, I like to go. So Erin, thank you for thinking I'm elected. I was appointed. Nobody actually voted for me. And thank you guys for inviting me to participate or to accepting my application to the board a year and a half ago. So as I'm thinking that like we're wrapping this up, and I have more questions than we have time, but I'm thinking back on kind of how did we start down this road? And I'm remembering to Joel Lewis and Cass calling a community listening session way back in, was it March or April? I don't remember. It was spring. And sharing their experiences, inviting others to share their experiences so we could listen, and the bravery that took, and the fact that things had happened in our own community and were happening at that moment in our larger county, in our state, that pushed us to have conversations that maybe we as a society should have had a long time ago. So I'm really grateful to everyone who has pushed us as a community to start talking about who and what and where we need to go, because that's a big thing, to contribute to your community that way. Somebody said it, I think it was you, Chris, that said shelter from the storm. I think I've been thinking of like, what's the metaphor that I have for tonight, or how am I kind of envisioning this? And I feel like we're all at the starting line in a lot of ways. Like, this might be our last session here today, but we're all at the starting line and we're all lined up, and we're all pulling in the right direction. And I think that one of the things I hear from all of us, and I hear from others in our community, is that we want our community to be a shelter in the storm for those that live here, and a safe harbor for those that are looking for a place where they can belong, and where they can be protected, and where they can feel as valued as we know they are, and we want them to be. And so that really sparked to me. Antonio, you said when you're talking about, speaking on behalf of the children that you were working with, and being more likely to do that, and I'm guessing feeling more comfortable doing that than speaking on your own behalf. I want to lift that burden. I want to share that, not just for the children that you're working with, but none of us as adults throughout our lives should feel like there aren't others that are speaking up and defending us and protecting us on our behalf. And again, thinking back to that first listening session that we were invited to listen, that the narrative arc for a lot of the folks in our community who as adults have endured their own incidents of racism in the community, and navigated their way around that without saying anything, but were speaking out that day because their children were affected. And regardless of our age, I want people to feel empowered to be in our community. So I don't know if I have a conclusion to this or a wrapping up statement, other than I feel like these conversations change me as a person, and hopefully change us as a community in ways that make us more of who we want to be, and bring us closer to one another, and bring us closer together in community. And with that, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you for Todd and Caitlin for arranging this, and everyone on the board for, as you guys have said, showing up and sharing and being present. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Do you want to go next, Antonio, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll go. First, once again, thank you, Kristen. But also thank you to Chris, Aaron, Gary, Phil, Nyla, who's that? Bill, Caitlin, and Todd, all of you, once again, for the opportunity and just for this conversation tonight. It's great to see how it all just comes together. A couple of things I want to share, but one thought I had when I was reading the opening quote about change, I purposely didn't use the last word potential, because for me, how I've grown and one of the ways that I live is that we all.
Uh-oh, he froze. Did he freeze for you too? Yep. Okay. So this is where, see, I told you it was the subtle nuances of our partnership. Because I actually know what he's about to say, but he'll jump on in just a moment, but he's definitely, oh, there he is. Okay. All right. I was about to fill in for you, but you're back. So go ahead. But you're out, now you're on mute. So go ahead. Go ahead. So you were saying why you don't use the word potential, because
it's just a word that I try to remove, that I did remove from my vocabulary. I just don't see it, and this is why. Because we all have hope. Everyone has potential, but do all have the opportunity? And when I stated this question about 4 years ago, it was in a room full of maybe 100 plus educators. And we were doing, it was the Equity Institute that I had a chance to facilitate. And in that moment, it helped me realize, because we kept saying, oh, the student has so much potential, so much potential. Yes, everyone has potential, but it's opportunity. in my own opinion. And I think that's what you all have as a team, as a group that you are tonight and today in your unit. You have the opportunity to create more opportunities. You have the opportunities to get together, to pull that door open for the members in your community. You all have the opportunity to make changes, to have tough conversations, to have difficult conversations, to make difficult decisions. You have the opportunity to be with one another and support one another throughout this journey. So I invite you all to embrace the opportunity that you all have and what you have given myself and Betsy to be a part of this community, to be a part of this team. And I just want to thank you and encourage you to continue to strive for everything that you want from day one. You all have this vision of this inclusive community. And at one point in time, I was sharing with Betsy the other day, and we were prepping for tonight. A lot of times we spoke throughout our time together about people outside of the community. I want to challenge and invite you all now to think about those that are in your community first. So let's make sure those in the community feel what we feel on the screen, and the rest will take care of itself. And once again, that's just my last closing words for our time. And I look forward to our next season. We have to find some sort of season to come back around. I don't know what that looks like, but like I said before, just in sharing personal stories, relationships, this is kind of how I open myself up and invite myself to be a part of who I am with you all. So I'm just looking forward to the next time we can connect. And Betsy, I'll leave it up to you.
Can I do a quick jump off from Antonio's message there? In terms of the next season, this is a challenge to you as a board here. Our next board meeting is November 2nd. Let me just share my screen. I'm posing a question. Where is that question? Here it is. So tonight isn't the night for answers, but I want you to start thinking on this for our discussion during this item on our board agenda on the 2nd. So what do you need your staff to do to help you in our organization? And I say organization, not community. I don't think we have you don't contain the inherent power to implement a change by your instruction in our community, but you do have that power with our organization. And my thought is that if we change as an organization, we're then able to impact the change in community. So that's why I didn't say community. So what do you need your staff to do to help you and our organization make progress in our diversity, equity, and inclusion work? So you can start to think about that, marinade, and we'll touch on that on the 2nd.
All right, so I don't have a lot to add to your closing, Antonio and Kristen. Thanks to all of you. Step in, open up, immerse, keep going, don't stop, all the things, right? I want you to know that, yes, we're at the beginning, another beginning. We should have multiple beginnings and multiple evolutions through our lives of the people that we are becoming. But as a team, I do hope that this experience continues to sort of reverberate through your various decisions that you make and perspectives. And just, I think that one of the things that this has reminded me of, there have been multiple times in our time together where I just, even when I said those of you in this room, where I feel our community and our connection. And I think we can continue this. We can continue this in some capacity, building connection, building community, even in our virtual world. So however we're able to do that, and however Antonio and I can be with you in that process, our hearts are already here in the work with you, and know that I'm over here by the high school. So I'm always up for a walk, a talk, a good question and answer session. You've got my info. So thank you for the opportunity, and just appreciate all of you very, very much.
Thanks, Betsy. Thanks, Antonio.
Okay, I'm gonna close and just say thank you to everyone for this. I treat this and look at it as though we all just did the polar plunge into this whole our issue. Some of us might feel a little pain. Some of us might be just exhilarated. And I'm hoping that's where we're all at, is exhilarated and moving forward with everything we're trying to accomplish. Difference being we're not cold yet, unless you're standing outside right now and you have a different screen than really is there. But I want to thank all of you seriously for doing this and taking the first steps, in my opinion. As Kristen pointed out, we're at the starting gate. Just getting ready to go here. And I look at it that we're actually a little past the starting gate, that we've engaged. We need to get the whole community to engage in the race for this. No pun intended with race there, by the way, in stating that. This is something that's going to be a great thing moving forward for our community, and we need to make sure that we as leaders continue to push forward. So you have my support with all of it, and if I can do anything to support all of you, I'm there for you. So with that, Dr. Ranum.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Good work, Betsy. Antonio, it's been a pleasure working with you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank all of you.
Good night.